We are now recording.
Good afternoon and welcome back to the afternoon sessions. Welcome to the Forum for Excellence Virtual Conference 2020. And my name is Bevan Gibson and I will be your moderator today. And Todd Jordans is also joining me to help for any tech support that you might have. We ask that you, if you have any questions, there's a chat box and a question and answer section over on your right-hand side of your Whova app. If you're in full screen, you may not see that. So if you put it in smaller screen, you will see that show up on the right-hand side. So I will be monitoring that. The presenters will take questions immediately following each of their presentations. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Hobson from Elgin Community College and Laura Williams from Danville Area Community College. They're presenting Survival 101, ICAPS during a pandemic. Take it away, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you, Bevan. Okay, so Bevan, I'm hoping that everyone can see the screen and can hear me speaking.
Yes.
If there's any problem with that? Okay, thank you.
That was good.
All right, so again, I'm Elizabeth Hobson, and I'm very excited to be presenting with you today with Laura Williams on Survival 101, ICAPS during a pandemic. So each one of us will be talking about the experiences at our community colleges. I'm the Dean of Adult Education at Elgin Community College. So the first thing I'd like to do is, using the chat feature, would you enter a word or a short phrase that describes how you felt about your ability to continue ICAPS? And if you don't have ICAPS, your bridge or any other programming that you had when campuses first started going remote back in March. So how did you feel when this all first started happening? And Bevan, if you could read out some as folks start putting them in, I would appreciate that.
I will do. Someone says panic.
Okay. We'll wait for a few more.
Anxious. Overwhelmed.
Okay. So I think that's how a lot of us were feeling. Kind of, again, the anxious, the overwhelmed, how are we going to handle this? Go ahead.
You also have some more. Worried and by hook and by crook. They're still coming in. It may take them a minute to get it all in, but
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to. Go ahead.
I'll wait for a couple more then, since you've got more coming.
Okay.
Hey, Bevan, did you say
I think
overwhelmed?
Confused, someone said.
Okay, so you can continue, but what I'd like for folks to do now is a similar activity. Think about how you feel now. Enter again a word or a short phrase about how are you feeling now to continue with ICAPS Bridge and other programming while we're still in this COVID-19. Go ahead, Bevan, if you would call out a few of those as they come in.
Accomplished. Accomplished.
Okay.
More equipped.
Motivated.
Excellent. Excellent.
Proud
Okay.
of my team. Proud of my team.
Excellent. Okay, so the idea is I wanted to kind of get a feel for where folks were. And from the ones that were called out, I think that's a lot of how I would say I was feeling. And I think you might see that as I go ahead and start into the presentation. So thank you so much. Again, I wanted to get a feel for where folks were to see if that was similar to or vastly different from my experience. So what I'd like to present on today is ICAPS and bridge programming during the COVID-19 crisis. And again, this is the experience that I was a part of at ECC, and we have a very large team. So it's well beyond just me. We have many, many, many folks who have participated and make this all possible throughout the college. So first I'm going to talk about spring, summer, and fall, and then marketing, recruitment, and enrollment. And then I'm going to move into planning for the future, which at this point we're looking at spring. So first I would like to let you know what kind of ICAPS and bridge programming we have at Elgin Community College. So for bridge programming, we have early childhood education, healthcare, and industrial arts and manufacturing. Those are the three bridges we have. And for ICAPS or IET pathways, we have BNA, CNC, dental office aid, EMTB, HVAC, industrial maintenance technology, phlebotomy, sterile processing and distribution, and welding. So again, you can see that to keep all this running, we have a lot of people at the college who are very instrumental in making all this work. So I'd like to let you know first that the college received a Title III Strengthening Institutions grant that led to extended collaboration within the college regarding ICAPS. So many results of this grant put ECC in better shape to weather the COVID storm. Developing and executing the Title III grant led to a greater collaboration within the college regarding ICAPS. So we got the grant in order to scale up ICAPS and to expand the available pathways. Again, I think it's important to mention this grant because so much of what took place throughout the execution put us in a better place to be prepared for what has come with this pandemic. So a few examples of that. First of all, the model was shared throughout the college, and that allowed promotion of understanding, cooperation, and many other departments to be able to be involved in informing students about ICAPS and being informed themselves about ICAPS. So for example, marketing, admissions, advising, registration, financial aid, they were all involved. So it was these areas in addition to our health professions, CTE, and adult ed divisions that were able to be a part of it. We also began encouraging the we instead of us and them. The example that I typically give here is that there were plenty of times in our early ICAP days when we might have a faculty member in a CTE program, for example, who would be talking about the students, and when they referred to the ICAP students, it was those students, those ICAP students. And so the idea that was encouraged was this idea that we're all working together. ICAPS is a way to support the students in each of these CTE programs. We're not a program in and of ourselves. We support what is happening in ICAPS. Additionally, we developed a block schedule for students that was consistent over both semesters for 2-semester programs. This was so helpful because previous to this Title III grant, we had programming where in some cases, in order for a student, for example, would be registering for classes, and 2 classes that they needed for that semester would be offered at overlapping times. And so it was impossible for them to take both of them. Another example is situations where a class might be offered early in the day and then another one was offered late in the day. So what was worked out through this, the processes of executing this Title III grant is that all the programming now runs from approximately 8 a.m. in the morning to 2 p.m. In the afternoon. And a student can be guaranteed of that so that they can plan their work schedule or any other things that they need to do can be planned around that. And then whatever, if it is a 2-semester pathway, the second semester will also follow a very similar set of times. Registration was also simplified, and this is important because previous, again, to the Title III grant, there was a lot of running back and forth between adult ed registration and the college registration. And at that time, the student was getting help doing it, but it was still just a lot of extra work. And at this point now, all of it takes place through the college registration process. 2 student support specialists were hired through this grant, and those 2, one of them is for the health professions and the other is for the manufacturing pathways. And they provide a tremendous amount of student case management. For example, with that registration process I was just mentioning, they make sure that that is seamless. They also coordinate with CTE. So they're making sure that the classes are offered that the students need and work in close contact with our CTE partners. And they also conduct workplace readiness workshops. So this was something that we discovered early on, was that our students had what they needed to get the job, but we heard from employers that in some cases they didn't have the skills to keep the jobs. So these workplace readiness workshops that we call Thriving in the Workplace were developed and are taught by the student support specialists. And those are the kind of skills that they talk about. A lot is communication and other skills that they need to keep their jobs. So moving into spring and summer. So, you know, if you'll recall, kind of take a step back, this is the March time that I asked at first, where people had more of the concerned and overwhelmed words that they mentioned as far as how they were feeling. And of course, that's how at ECC we were feeling too. So looking at our bridge programming was able to finish virtually. So that was not a problem. But the ICAPS programming, that was another case because they, of course, were only midway through. So the student support specialists and support course faculty continued assisting students as support courses and most CETE content courses went remote. And I highlight here that collaboration and communication were key to supporting students because there was so much unknown at this time. You know, students were overwhelmed and confused. We were trying to get it all figured out just as they were. So the labs, practicals, and clinicals all had to pause due to that stay-at-home order. And most of them were able to resume in June. So again, we had the social distancing, labs that lowered the number of students in attendance so that we were able to just have a few students in small groups on campus at a time. And of course, we followed all necessary safety guidelines. We did also have some clinicals that needed to resume in late summer. And in fact, we have some that are still completing this fall. And some of the sites, hospitals, for example, are just letting students back or let them back in at later times than some of the other sites. Traditionally, ECC has not run bridge programming or ICAPS in the summer, and that was very helpful this summer as we were able to simply focus on those spring students who needed to complete, and we did not have another round of students that we were getting ready to start. So we're currently in fall semester right now. And so some of the changes that we've had to make in order to accommodate the students successfully for this fall are things I'll talk about now. So for example, we have had CTE faculty who determined that their students were struggling with D2L. And that's the learning management system that we use on campus. And so they requested permission to hold some small on-campus student orientations in order to help their students understand that technology and be able to use it successfully. And also kind of these conversations were held on campus about mixing the online coursework with the campus lab. So it was really important that although we wanted to have all the face-to-face coursework in the labs to be put in the front of the semester, that you need to teach the theory before you can have students do the application. So there was conversations about making sure that was happening this semester. Also, enrollment caps were lowered so that smaller numbers of students would be in each of these lab classes. And they were
Elizabeth,
cross-listed such
there was
that the,
Elizabeth,
yes?
there was a question.
Yeah.
There was a question dealing with the registration process.
Okay.
They wanted to know. They wanted to know, was the registration process shifted for entire adult ed potential students, or do you mean for adult ed enrollment in CTE classes?
Just for CTE. So it's just for the, do you mean online or do you mean for the ICAPS classes? I guess I would need further.
I would assume, since she said CTE, that she means for the ICAPS.
Okay, right.
Claudia,
So the
Claudia,
ICAPS,
we'll have to clarify.
sure. So the ICAPS class, that's a great question. The ICAPS classes, they register through the traditional processes that the college and students in the regular, well, I hate to use that word regular, but through other CTE programming, they all register now through the college process. Adult ed classes simply register through the adult ed program, and making sure that the students are in the correct adult ed class for that student support class. That's one of the things that the student support specialists make sure happens. Whereas prior to the Title III grant, the student was needing to come over and do that on their own. Well, again, they would have support, but they were the ones doing the legwork. And now the student support specialists are taking care that they're properly enrolled in both the adult ed support class as well as the CTE classes necessary. So hopefully that answers, but if not, feel free to put another question in the chat and I'll be happy to answer further. So
Thanks.
Sure. So we cross-listed, or we are this fall, cross-listing courses so that the online lecture would include the whole group of students, but the labs would be smaller, so that the faculty member would have everybody for the theory part of the class, but for the application in the labs, that would be the smaller groups that would be coming on campus. And we're also finishing the face-to-face on-campus portions by Thanksgiving. So anything that's online will continue through December, but by finishing the face-to-face by Thanksgiving, we're hoping kind of twofold. One, that if anybody travels over Thanksgiving or in any way is further subjected to maybe being with somebody who has the virus, that they're online the rest of the semester. And then the other part of that is if they do have to finish something, if the campus has to close or for other reason they have to finish, that there is a couple more weeks into December to actually finish those face-to-face labs if that would become necessary. So again, losing days to campus closing is something we're very concerned about. So we have already had one day that the campus closed, and as soon as week one took place, there's already students who are quarantining because of COVID, or again, we've had some COVID cases on campus. So also faculty are going to need to work with students who are going to need to make up classes, either due to illness or quarantine, where we expect that to happen. And the clinical scheduling, again, in the hospitals, that too will depend on when when the clinical sites are open and available to students. And in addition to having the fall students who are just getting started, we do also have some spring students who did not complete in the summer, either because they chose to drop because of things that were happening at that time and pick up and finish now, or again, the majority of the clinical sites we were able to get everyone in and taken care of, but we do still have some sites and at least one pathway that is still finishing now. So as far as the support classes, they're entirely remote using synchronous Zoom sessions. And they're also using Desire to Learn, which again is the college learning management system. And they're using that as a supplement, much the same way they did with the face-to-face classes that we've had previously. We're not asking the support instructors to attend the labs, even though normally they, in many of the pathways they would have, and to only attend the synchronous or asynchronous instruction that's taking place, because that will help to keep the numbers of people in the lab at one time to a lower number. And we did also have to do some course time revisions. So we certainly try to keep our schedule to be done very early so that students are able to register knowing what time and day things will be. But with everything going on, we did have to make some revisions to the fall schedule. So looking a little bit at marketing, recruitment, and enrollment, all of this has now moved to be mostly virtual. So through orientations and workshops, which are now virtual, students are informed about ICAPS and bridge programming. We also have our adult education transitions coordinator will pop into the synchronous portion of classes and talk to students about bridge programming. And the student support specialists will pop into these synchronous portions of class time and talk about the ICAPS programming. And then again, going back to this Title III grant, again, that has just been huge as far as supporting the ICAPS programming. Through this process of moving those students into the college registration process, we now have college admissions, advising, and other program personnel who will contact the student support specialist and let them know that there are students who are interested in ICAPS. And then depending on what pathway they want, either our student support specialist for health professions or the one for manufacturing will reach out to those students, get them more information, and then guide them through the process should they be interested. So in addition to that, we do a lot of other very traditional things as far as announcements posted on Desire to Learn, virtual flyers to our community partners. As we're able to, we will have hard copies of flyers posted throughout the community. And then we do put information on social media as well as the college website. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, students who are going to be in ICAPS, they do enroll through the college process. So they go through the traditional process of admissions, advising, and registration. And the student support specialists, again, they're integral to this process. They coordinate the student experience. They're the ones looking out to make sure that students are in the right section. That's the ICAPS section for each of their courses. They make sure that the students are tested for the adult education testing, and they work with the adult education staff to make sure that's taking place. And again, both of the student support specialists during this COVID time have both a remote and an on-campus presence. And the bridge students, they enroll through the adult education division, and our adult education transitions coordinator is the one who makes sure that that is seamless. And she, again, is the one that will meet with them to make sure that they understand what that program is all about and that they get into the right section for that. So looking at the future, where are we going? So of course, we're already talking about spring, and some things are already set and will be able to be rolled over, but other things need to be revisited. And of course, as people talked about for how are they feeling now, again, we feel like we have more of this under our belt. We're feeling more confident, just as you all mentioned when you put your comments in there. As we've made it through the first semester of fall, or we're in the middle of fall right now, rather, but again, kind of looking at what has taken place and how it's going. So as we're planning for spring, we'll have those things in mind. So again, looking at possibilities for labs and clinicals. We'll be front-loading things face-to-face. The enrollment, again, will be capped at some lower numbers. And again, we'll be cross-listing so that the online lectures will include the entire group or cohort of students, but that labs will have smaller groups. We have already decided that we will ask the face-to-face classes to finish 2 weeks prior to the end of the traditional semester in May. So we've selected a date that they will finish. And there is also conversation about providing some kind of a buffer at the beginning of the semester, so that as students and faculty and others are celebrating holidays with their family, that they'll come back in January to an online setting to kind of provide a buffer if there is any transmission of COVID. So that is still up in the air if that's going to take place or not, but that has been discussed. So again, one of the concerns is the clinical scheduling for students who need to be at clinical sites because of the concern for the flu season combining in there with COVID-19. The support classes will be run the same as they are running this semester. They'll be synchronous, they'll use Desire to Learn, and the support instructors, again, will only attend the online portions of class, but will not attend the face-to-face labs this semester. Bridge programming, we are doing a little differently in that in the spring, they finished, so that was good. And this current semester, fall, we're not running any bridge programming. But for spring, we do have plans to run 2 of our bridges. We're going to run our healthcare bridge, and we're planning to also run our industrial arts manufacturing bridge. We currently have faculty members who are working to get those course modifications going, and looking through the courses to see what how will those work in an online setting. Typically, we would have had students tour some of the college and or possibly go out into the community. So again, we're addressing that, considering the possibility of doing some video recording of some of the labs so that students can see some of that that they would have seen face-to-face, but now they'll be able to see it through videos. So these are things that are being discussed as we're preparing to run these 2 bridges in starting in the spring. So lessons learned, where are we at today? So definitely there's been some challenges. Communication has been a huge challenge. And so, everyone looks at this a little bit differently, and that's one of the things we definitely have seen, is that when we moved to the remote learning in the spring, there were some people who thought that the communication was going well, and others thought it was really lacking. So that is something just for us to be keeping in mind. Similarly, there was administrators who felt well connected. Some faculty also felt well connected, but there was other faculty who did not and felt like, we needed to be putting out more information and more often information. So that's something else for us to keep in mind. And communication with students via text, call, and email was challenging. Whether that was at the beginning in March, trying to kind of get communication with them to make sure that they were settled with their online classes and knew what they needed to do and have their technology, as well as now we're still finding this as we're trying to get them enrolled into classes and just making sure again that they know what needs they have and making sure we're meeting those needs. The figuring out of the clinical experiences continues to be a challenge. So some hospitals are accommodating students and some are not. Some students are ending up to do their clinicals at hospital sites different from where they originally planned. And again, this concern, if there's a bad flu season, that could end up changing or delaying clinicals, as hospitals might then need to focus on patient care and not have the ability to be training students at the same time. We also have concerns about that, and that we want to make sure that we're getting students through the program in a timely manner and don't want them to be delayed because we can't meet their needs for clinicals. One of the other challenges is that for so many of our students right now, school is on the back burner. You know, they are dealing with concerns about food insecurity, housing insecurity. If their own children are, you know, have K-12 schooling and they're trying to, you know, figure out how to keep them on track, whether they're going face-to-face or whether they're sitting at a computer during the day. If our, you know, our personal students or our, you know, ICAPS students, if they're employed or if they're not employed and they're trying to get employed, and just all of these things that they're juggling, it was hard enough for the students to juggle all this in a time without COVID, that now it's just, you know, the COVID has just exasperated all of these situations. Another challenge is testing. We're currently just doing CASAs. We're not doing TABE anymore. But so whether it's the CASAs or for the healthcare students, if they need PSB or CPR, just managing all these tests for the students and making sure they're getting what they need. Additionally, the students are impacted by the faculty administration and college processes changing to remote. So we so often hear that analogy of, you know, building the airplane while it's flying. That's kind of what was happening here as we were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get books to students, or how will we get, you know, kits to students that have materials in them for them to do labs, or any of these other things that were taking place. Another challenge is that we already have students quarantining, and we know this is going to continue to happen all semester. So again, that Thriving in the Workplace course that I mentioned, the student support specialists are making sure that they include this topic of how will they reach out, how will students reach out to their faculty, you know, how will students handle if they are quarantining or if they are ill, as part of the communication topic in that workshop. Lastly, though, I do want to mention that we've also had many successes. And as we said, communication was a challenge. Communication has also been a success. I cannot say enough positive things about our student support specialists and our adult education support course faculty. Those two groups were the groups that kept this going for us. The student support specialists and the adult education support course faculty members, they made sure that students were informed. They made sure that students felt positive about moving forward. They reassured students and made them feel comfortable with where we were, and they continue to do that constantly, whether they are, you know, triaging what's happening with the students or whether they're providing the instruction for the students. It's just that positive student interaction that cannot be replaced. Again, I cannot tell you enough positive things about these two groups of folks who work with our ICAPS students. So they have been just a huge success. The students were also finding they're doing quite well with the remote instruction this fall. It seems perhaps we're attributing it to the idea that they expected it now, they knew it was going to happen. So again, I already mentioned that the CTE faculty held the technology orientations to make sure the students felt comfortable. And then the student support specialists did both of their orientations on Zoom using D2L, and they're also doing their Thriving in the Workplace workshops via Zoom. And then I had also mentioned that the adult education support courses, are done on Zoom as well. So the last success that I want to mention is somewhat of an irony. So in 2019-2020, that academic year, the students had a 76% completion rate in ICAPS. The previous year, 2018-2019 academic year, there was a completion rate of 68%. So we had a higher completion rate during this COVID situation than we did the previous year without it. And that's what I have. Are there any questions?
Just the one I asked
Oh,
earlier,
thank
and
you.
someone said glad to hear about running 2 bridge programs in the spring. So we'll go ahead and let you stop sharing your screen and let Laura go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Williams. I'm the Dean of Adult Education at Danville Area Community College, and I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm kind of reminded when the Titanic, when Leonardo DiCaprio was talking, and he's like, who knew I'd be dining with you fine folks this evening? So I kind of feel like that, you know. It's definitely been a challenging time, but it's been a time for us to really learn new things. So I'm very happy to be with you and very happy that the beat is going on. So I'm going to talk about our ICAPS and our high school equivalency, our technology usage and recruitment and retainment. In the spring of 2020, our ICAPS program was running with our CNA, our Certified Nursing Assistant program. And as you can see, it was typically a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday class from 8:30 to 3:30. And we were moving along very well with that. We were set to have our clinical portion of the classroom starting at the end of April. So again, things were going very well until March 12th, when that was our last day on campus. With our high school equivalency classes, we were also having quite a few sections running. We had on-campus classes in the day and at night. We had a site at the American Job Center, the Danville Housing Authority, and a local junior high school in the evenings, where we were reaching out to people in the community, and then also in our northern part of the county at our extension site with DACC. So we had a lot of classes going, and we typically run that number typically every spring and every fall. So we went from normal to COVID to crazy and then to pretty cool, and so I'll get to that part. So what did we do? With our high school equivalency, you know, we were proactive. The writing was on the wall. All of you that were at the IASA conference in March, we were all in Springfield, and you know, news was trickling down that the state was going to close. So we, you know, immediately got home and became very proactive. We did. Poor Kathy Olson Tracy. She deserves an Oscar for this one, because I called her and I'm like, hey, I need you to do a quick training on iPathways. And I had all of my instructors in here, and she totally did an impromptu training. So, you know, I guess my lesson there is don't be afraid to reach out, because, you know, that was a long shot, but Kathy certainly accommodated that request. We sent a letter to all of our current students with their DAC student email, because a lot of times students they have no idea about their email, or they don't know the login. So we developed a how-to infographic. And we said, if we don't come back, because we were getting ready to go on spring break as well. So we said, if we don't come back, this is what we're going to do. So everybody knew that plan. And then when we realized we really weren't coming back, our teachers began working remotely immediately with the students and began having Zoom meetings with our staff and instructors. And then as an employee group, we were meeting with each other too once a week, just to make sure we were all holding it together and hearing any instructions that were coming. With ICAPS, we, again, all those students received that letter that I talked about with all the instructions of what to do. We contacted the Illinois Department of Public Health to ask for their guidance, because, you know, obviously all CNA programs are monitored by IDPH. And so we learned that there would be 20 hours allowed of online training, along with 20 hours at the facility. And this would allow them to make their 40 hours because, as Elizabeth said, we weren't being allowed in the facilities, obviously, because of the threat of COVID. All of our instructors came in for Blackboard training, and that's our LMS here at DACC. And then we tried to find some online skill providers for the CNA portion. And we ended up purchasing Evolve and Elsevier, where they did have that online option of skills. And two of my teachers decided to use that, although one decided she wanted to do hers in person. So I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. We purchased the Zoom professional account, so that way we'd have those for admin and teachers. We loaned out computers. We allowed the students to withdraw. You know, that's something without that being on their transcript, because again, you do no harm. And I think that was the message from the state, do no harm. So how could we do that? So we did back students out, and as if they weren't in the class, for those students that didn't want to continue. And then with the COVID dollars, and most of the community colleges got COVID dollars, I'm not sure if nonprofits did, but we also were able to provide our students with $250 during that time. So I was very proud that my college supported the adult education students as well. Here's a picture of what the skills look like. So the instructor's in the middle, and then she's watching all the skills take place when students were in their own homes, practicing on a family member or friend. So technology, you know, prior to this, we used it a little bit, but since this, obviously, we jumped all on there. So Zoom was one of the main formats that we used. It was cheap, it was easy. We were able to learn it quickly. Of course, the college already had Blackboard as their learning format. We jumped on to readworks.org. That's a great place to get reading materials. You can assign students information. You can receive handouts, worksheets. So that's a really cool site, and there's no charge for that. So I suggest that if you're looking for something, definitely look that up. And then we also incorporated Google Classroom. So this slide, my lesson here is I want to remind people, when ICCB or anybody else throws out offers, make sure you're looking at those and applying, because you don't know if you're going to get it, but if you do, look what it can do for you. So I requested $5,000 of additional money, and that was able to help me pay for disposable workbooks to complement the online learning. And you all know a lot of times our students want that paper pencil. They want to be able to touch that material, look at it, review it. And, you know, you're not doing that with the online format. So we bought the disposable workbooks to complement the online. We were able to buy a Zoom subscription. We were able to buy cameras for our instructors to make sure everyone had the technology needed to successfully run those classes. So we got all ready. We were out, and we're like, okay, we're ready for this. But where were the students? How were they going to know what was going on? Because, you know, the word was education's closing, the state's closing. So people were thinking there might not be classes. So no students would equal no program, would equal no money. And that would mean we just weren't serving. We weren't following the adult education mission of serving our community. So we weren't about to sit by idly and just, you know, if we build it, they will come. You all know we have to make sure our students, we have to reach out again and again and again. So we ran with that. So we called the newspapers. We had front page articles going out. And again, a big part of my presentation here is going to be on marketing, because you are your own best advocate. You have to advocate for your program, because that's the only way we're going to reach our students. And you have to think broadly. You can't just, you know, do things the way that you've always done them. You have to think outside the box. So call the newspaper, got a front page article going. I called in some of my radio favors. One of my side jobs with the college is the college hosts a radio show on one of the local radio shows. And so I have a lot of networking with that. So I called different radio stations that are local. I was able to get in on their shows. They hosted me. I answered questions. I talked about what was happening. Again, how many of my students are listening to those two particular stations, I have no idea, but I know that lots of people listen to those shows. And word from a friend to a friend to a friend. So called in radio. I used our internal networking at the college, our marketing department that we have here. They were able to help with press releases and getting us on YouTube. We sent out emails. We contacted our local TV stations. We had clips on there. We had Facebook. We used one of our WIOA partners, and I can't even begin to talk about how valuable the WIOA partners were during this, because if you all are doing what you need to do there, and you're having those meetings with your American Job Center, and you're just working together, you build those relationships. And so I call them, and I'm like, hey, can you help us get the word out? So they actually put 650 of our flyers in every tenant's rent bill. What a great way to reach out to let people know we are in business and here's what's going to happen. Our external networks, we have some community groups. One of them is called Step Up. There are about 250 community members in that group. I sent an email with that information with a flyer attached, asked them to blast it out. There are a lot of nonprofits, a lot of self-help, a lot of governmental, etc. So just using my network to reach out in any way possible. The high school counselors, just having that relationship, getting the information out. Our probation offices, our human services department, and then, I have a picture of our WIOA. Well, that's not our picture personally. However, WIOA, just in general, making sure that we were using every networking opportunity to get the word out. And then we developed letters and we made phone calls to any student we had in the past year. So again, we wanted them to know we are open and we're ready to serve. And then someone said this earlier, what a great team of people we work with. Adult educators, we're in it, we're all in. And so just letting people know we appreciated them, the work they did, and the work they had put into their students and was going to put into their students. So where are we now, fall 2020? So preface, we're not where we want to be, but I think we're way better than what we thought we would be. So DACC is actually open, so we are having face-to-face classes with 10 students in the classroom. We do have to follow social distancing guidelines. We have to wear masks at all times. We have to remain 6 feet apart, and currently our enrollment is down about 50%. We were able to add 2 online sections, again, augmenting that with our disposable workbooks. We did have to cut 5 of our sites. 2 of those were at public schools, and we obviously couldn't be in the public school system. We're struggling with the DAISY transition. I think everybody is. We're struggling with a $30,000 budget cut because of the demographics. If you listen to that presentation on statistics, the population shift in Illinois was real. They say the struggle was real. Well, the struggle gave me a $30,000 for real budget cut. And then we were able to run ICAPS this current semester due to our college classes, because with a limit of only 10 students per class, in case the state rolled back to phase 3, all of our CE teachers had to start teaching more sections to accommodate what they already had going on. So it was a very bumpy time. However, we're still standing. And what we're doing right now, we're using this time to revise, to develop, to refine what we offer, how we offer it, when we offer it, and we're, revising our marketing strategies as well. We've been able to braid a lot of funding and partnerships and networking, and, the learning curve was real. But man, people stepped up to the plate, and it's absolutely been amazing. And I want to tell you that one of the things what we've done with marketing, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Most of the things that I've done cost us nothing. And so one of the things that we've really been hitting on is Facebook and just making impromptu videos. Now I'm going to show you one real quick. I hope this is we're going to see where we go with this one. Let's see if it goes. And let me turn off the volume. Whoa.
Laura, if you're going to start a video, you'll have to probably hit reshare on the video, just so you know. Just look and see.
Okay. Well, you know what? My volume's not working with it anyway, so I'm just going to stop that real quick, and I'm going to go back. So, Bevan, are we back on?
You know that it normally costs
Oh, there we go.
$120 to take the GED test. Well, now it's only going to cost you $40. That's $10 for each piece because you have
You have the audio, not the video.
studies and
Okay,
language
I'm just going to stop
So
that.
even if you
Bear
don't
with me
know
one
if
moment.
you're not sure that you can pass it, for $10 you can come and find out. It's an absolutely amazing deal. We have
Well, maybe I'm going to stop that.
and so now there's a little education to come in.
Okay, bear with me.
Can take that GED
I'm
test.
trying to get rid of it. Hang on,
Pass that test,
folks.
get that high school equivalency
See, this is why you shouldn't try
documentation.
those last-minute things.
Now, if you want
Okay. Hopefully we got that shut off. Bevan, are we good? We're back at my slide.
Yep, you're good.
No,
Oh,
you need to share your screen again.
Okay. Share the screen. Tab. Okay, we good?
There you
Yep.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that, folks. I was hoping that would work. That's why you shouldn't try things impromptu. But hey, if you do, snooze, you lose, right? And so using Facebook just to come up with those, it doesn't have to be where you have to have a professional photographer. I grab one of my coworkers. I say, hey, bring your phone out here. I'm going to do a video. And you just do that video, and you'd be amazed at how many shares you get from that. And man, with the state helping with the GED cost at only $40 and the high set for only $13.75, that's amazing. When we put that video out there, that was shared so many times on Facebook, and we received tons of phone calls, tons of walk-ins, because we are still registering in person. We are testing with our tape. We're doing all of that in person. And so again, we're just following social distancing guidelines, making sure there's 10 or less. So we have really taken advantage of that, gotten the word out about that. And if you want to look on your own, you can just go to Danville Area Community College Adult Education, and then you can find the videos. And again, just letting students know what's going on, letting them know you're open, letting them know that we are here and we're ready to have those classes. We have opened up a few more classes, and our enrollment is starting to trend up, kind of how Elizabeth was talking. So things really are looking up, and I'm super proud of what everyone's been able to do and the way they've been able to work. Again, kind of the important points I want to put out there right now. Use this time. Use this time to learn new formats. I think all of us have learned a lot since March. Use this time to revise and develop new plans. I know I have one of my CTE instructors on this presentation, and we're talking about starting a new program with her. So her and I are meeting in the hallways and having those conversations and running into each other, emailing back and forth. How can we develop a new path? So it's a perfect time to do that type of planning. And even though we're not running it right this second, we are going to be running it, and we're going to be able to come back stronger and better for what we've learned and prepared, because if we do go out again, we're ready for that. So, just use this time. Make sure that you're looking for all the free marketing you can get. Again, tons, again, I told you I was a radio host, so I'm always looking for guests, except now my program fills up immediately because people know the program fills up immediately. When you're looking for those guests, we need you to come and be the interviewee. So when you're calling the radio stations and saying, hey, do you have any local talk shows? Is there anything that we can get on? Are there any community information spots, public service announcements, making sure you're taking a part of that. Befriending your local reporters, inviting them to your campus, talking with them. I know sometimes with marketing departments, that niche is something that they don't want other people touching, but our marketing department is very willing to share that venue, and they don't mind that. So make sure you're working with your marketing to see what they can do. I mean, the people in those jobs make good money for a reason, because they have that knowledge. So tapping into them, using things like Facebook and all the different social venues that you have. And then a couple of the words that people said at the beginning was they felt accomplished and proud now. So when this all started in March, I think we were all scared crapless. We had no idea. But man, I mean, when I listen to these presentations and I hear what people have done, I'm just amazed, because the most creative bunch, the most willing to change. People jumped on it and they dug in, and people made it happen. And those are our people. That's adult education. And I'm super, super proud of what people have done. And when someone put that word on there, proud, that's exactly how I feel. I think my team's done an amazing job. I know the teams throughout the state have done an amazing job. And I'm just I'm very proud to be a professional in the field of adult education, and I congratulate you all. I think that you've done amazing things, and I just ask you to keep that up. And Bevan, I know I asked for a 5-minute warning, and I think I'm 5 minutes right now, but I'm just going to ask everyone to put it in the chat real quick. If you could sum up what you want the future to look like, give us a word or a statement, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And are there any questions, Bevan, that you want to throw at me, or are we good?
I don't see any yet, but it takes people a minute to enter those, so I'll see.
Okay. So
Someone said Rosie. The future is rosy.
The future is rosy. Everything's coming up roses, right?
Yeah. They said, thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome. And just a reminder that we'd be happy to share anything that we've talked about. Hit us up and we can help answer questions.
Hey, Bevan, you might want to bring up your slides now.
I know, I'm working on it. I can't ever get rid of the chat.
I just click a little button at the top.
I know, hang on.
Thanks, Michelle. Todd, do I need to stop share? Does that have anything to do with it?
Yes, you need to stop share.
Stop sharing, and then Bevan can take it. Just that big green share button.
I know. Can't miss the big green button. Okay.
We see it.
All right. I want to thank all of you for your attendance today. And I want to make sure that you know to go back to underneath this session in the app is a place where you can rate the session to give an evaluation. We'd appreciate your input on that. And then you can go back and it's under the agenda and just hit submit. We appreciate anything that you could give us any feedback on that. Also follow us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, the Professional Development Network. Also CTE has Facebook and Twitter. And the hashtags are hashtag Forum for Excellence 2020 and hashtag Excellence for Equity. The Illinois Community College Board also has Facebook. And want to remind everyone to engage with us. Submit your photo to our live photo mosaic wall. I've already taken a picture of Laura and Elizabeth and posted that from the screen. Submit your photos by texting it to that number, 585-207-6225. We want to just have a big group of people tomorrow as all of us that are attending. And then you can actually watch it. You have to get that in by the end of today, because at 8:30 in the morning, we'll be able to look at that video. And also wanted to remind you that in the morning, we have several sessions starting at 7:15 to 8:15. I know it's bright and early, but we have a mindfulness for the workplace session. We also have 4 different coffee groups that you could pick from. And one of those is if you're fresh to the forum, or one on equity and innovation, and catching up with conference friends, and then bloopers while working remotely, which are kind of cool discussions. So just network with your friends, etc. Just pour yourself a cup of coffee, or in my case, a Diet Mountain Dew, and join in with your friends. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Burlington English, GIST, Essential Education, ACTE, HiSET, and New Readers Press. And again, Elizabeth and Laura, I want to thank you for your presentation today and sharing your experiences with everyone. And I hope you all have a good rest of the evening. Oh, wait a minute. I wanted to remind you, tonight is trivia from 6 to 8. You can go into your app, okay, and you can still sign up and register. All you have to do is go into the app, go to community, this is the community tab on your app, go under organizer announcements. There's a thing there for virtual trivia, and then there's a link there if you click under the details where you can actually register for the trivia for tonight. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. and it is family friendly, and a good time will be had by all, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.